It's showtime.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
Washington is fundamentally corrupt. There are more words in the IRS code than there are in the Bible.
Made in America, heard round the world. You're listening to Blunt Force Truth. I'm Chuck Woolery, along with my co-host Mark Young. How you doing, buddy?
Chuck, if things were going any better, there'd have to be two of me.
Is that because of all the recent news, or just because everything's going really great for you?
No Russian collusion. ISIS is on the run. Avenatti is in an orange jumpsuit. The military's building a wall. Obamacare has been ruled unconstitutional.
But who knows this stuff? Only us, right?
Well, that and 120,000 of our closest friends right now.
Well, that's right. I mean, because nobody else knows it because you don't hear it in the news. It's amazing what you don't hear in the news today, isn't it?
It is. And by the way, I don't make that comment lightly when I say our friends. People that listen to this show, sure. You are our friends. I have a great respect for anybody who takes the time out of their day to be informed and to listen to what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
So, Chuck, we have a great guest with us today. We're going to talk to none other than David Nino Rodriguez, heavyweight champion.
You know, this guy had an incredible record. I think it was he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like 32-2 with, I don't know how many knockouts.
37-2.
Pardon. See, I knew.
There you go.
Right in. I knew he would correct me. 37 with 32 knockouts. Is that right?
37-2 with 35 knockouts.
So, in other words, Chuck, David will knock your ass out.
Yeah.
those days are over, gentlemen. I'm retired now.
I'm still suspecting you could knock my ass out, but I'm going to go with you're retired anyways.
David, I'm a big boxing fan. Mark knows that all the world stops when boxing comes on for me. And I have a lot of guys that I follow that I really think are terrific. Obviously, the heavyweight division, and I hope our audience isn't bored by this, but I want to get into it a little bit because you were in this for so many years of your life. But the heavyweight division is always kind of the crown jewel. And yet at the same time, there are guys like Lomachenko, who's, lightweight or featherweight. I'm not sure what his weight is, but it's, pretty small, who's just an awesome fighter. I think one of the great mistakes last week was when our friend in California, I just went up on his name. He's one of my favorites. I can't think of his name. Took on Errol Spence Jr. It should never have happened. He was way too much for him. But
are you talking about Mikey Garcia?
Yeah, Mikey Garcia, who Mikey Garcia just had a splendid record. He was a great fighter, great fundamentals. I'd love to watch him. Great family, great boxing history in his family. And why he threw this away on Errol Spence Jr., I have no idea, because Spence was just way too big for him, way too strong.
Yeah, you're right. But he was putting away the good to go for the great. A lot of fighters have to do that. They get bored and they want to accomplish new things. They want to charter new waters. And I think what he did was,
I kind of understand that, but I'm not so sure his team was all for that move. And I think they were probably right because, and after all, you got to look at it. He lasted 12 rounds. I think that's the longest Errol Spence Jr. has ever gone in a fight. But
yeah, exactly.
I did watch that and was a little disappointed because it's so lopsided. But now let me ask you something.
Go ahead.
In the crop of new heavyweights, I'm sure you follow this very closely. You got Deontay Wilder, you got Joshua over in Britain, you got what's the guy's name? Just fought Deontay and came to a draw.
Tyson.
Yeah, Tyson Fury. Is there anybody else in that mix that looks interesting to you? Or outside
I
of
was just at the fights on Saturday in Orange County. I'm here in California right now.
Right.
I was at the fights to see Pulev fight, and Pulev is looking strong. I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. I believe he's probably about 1 fight to 2 fights away from fighting Deontay or Anthony Joshua.
Really?
So I think the heavyweight division right now is really exciting, to be honest. It's just that
I know
these guys are making so much. Yeah, these guys are just making so much money picking their fights. They got to fight each other now. It's time to, Tyson Fury and Deontay should have fought again.
I'm just wondering if Deontay is going to step up with Joshua or not. I mean, You know, I've been watching Deontay Wilder from the beginning, and he's certainly come a long way. There's no question about it. He's extremely strong. But I was surprised that he didn't knock Tyson Fury out. I really was. I mean, Tyson Fury is either a lot better than I thought, or Deontay.
No, Tyson Fury is a very awkward, unorthodox fighter that makes a hard fight for anybody. He's very slick, and he's a big guy. Punches. Yeah. He doesn't have that snappy on his punch, but he does punch hard. So he gave Deontay. You know, Deontay had to have the respect to fight him. I think that, to be quite honest with you, I think that Deontay is. I think it's going to come down to Deontay versus Anthony, and that'll be the biggest fight in heavyweight history as soon as that happens. And
well, in our lifetime, anyway, the biggest fight was, you know, Clay versus well, it was Clay at the time, maybe not. What? Oh God, there's so many of them back then in the day. You know,
yeah, back in the day, that was a strong division back in the. The heavyweights were a strong division in the 70s, you know, with Frazier and Ali.
Huge.
Yeah, that's what everybody watched was heavyweights back then.
And now you're watching middleweights and welterweights and all these other, you know, classes are not taking over because everybody's always looking for that next heavyweight and hoping it will be theirs. Now, you were Mexican-American. You grew up in Mexico, right?
Yeah, well, I grew up in El Paso, which is borders Juarez.
I'm sorry. I thought you
Juarez was the most
across the border.
Well, I mean, I went to both. I mean, I was raised on both sides. I mean, Juarez is, you know, vastly different than El Paso, especially now with all the cartel wars that happened and just completely decimated the city. Became a ghost town, and everyone moved over to El Paso.
Juarez is just a mess.
It's a vastly different place. It used to be the best. You know, growing up in El Paso when I was 18, 19, you know, going over there and partying over there in high school, just like Beto O'Rourke did. I was kind of wrong. I was surrounded by a different element than he was. We would go there and you'd have Mexico at your disposal. You'd go there and party and have a blast. You've had the whole strip to yourself. It was like Vegas for teenagers. You know, it's like you'd go there and drink when you're 13. It was insane. And it's like, you know, so to grow up in that element was just so vastly different than any city, other city in the nation. You know, nobody had that.
We're only talking about South Texas. Interestingly enough, I mean, I spent 45 years in Los Angeles, and prior to Tijuana being kind of the jewel on that side where everybody went to the bullfights and did all that stuff back in the 40s and 50s, by the time I got there, it was the late 60s, early 70s. And Tijuana was great. Everybody wanted to go. It was fun. It was all these kinds of things. But now, nothing is safe on that side of the border anymore. Nothing.
No, it's gotten really sadistic, man. It's kind of like there's a lot of turf wars, and you know what happened with the thing with Chapo Guzman and the territories that in Juarez between the Zetas, the Barrio Aztecas, the Sinaloa cartel, all the separate gangs running. You know, it was a turf war. It was a territory war. And Juarez became a battleground, a serious battleground, probably the most dangerous. It was the most dangerous city in the world. And the murder capital of the world.
Nino, I think
it was still worse. It was still much worse than Chicago. It was still worse.
Bad joke.
I think you're exaggerating.
Oh no, I know what you mean.
You must be exaggerating. It's because there's no problem at the border.
Yeah, there's no crisis there. We all know.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no risk down.
There's no national emergency.
Yeah, and building a wall would be racist.
How can these people on the left possibly say that there's not a crisis on the border? When this is just insane to me. We can see it every day. I mean, it's on television.
Let me comment on that. Russian collusion. 22 months of Russian collusion.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's just, you know, it's like we all know, it's a deep state pulling strings, and the thing is this is that, you know, I remember when I used to drive in El Paso, there'd be signs on the freeway with a father and holding the mother, and then the mother dragging the kid. I don't know if
be careful and watch out for these people.
California too.
Yeah,
because they're crossing so many times. But right now in El Paso, we have a horrible problem. It's they're going to start letting go, I think, 600 to 1,000 immigrants a day in El Paso. They're going to start letting them go because they have nowhere to house them. They have nowhere to keep them. So now they're going to just start letting them go.
The thing I don't understand, and, you know, they talk about our immigration system being broken, intentionally being broken, is why they just can't return them to their country of origin, no matter what it is. But I guess
no, they have to go through a court. They have to go through a court process now.
Exactly. I mean, it's just insane. No other country in the world.
Yeah, no, they have more rights than. And let me tell you this. Here's another thing that'll boil you. When you go to like the ports of entry, there are thousands of kids coming from Mexico every morning to use our school system.
Oh, I remember in California, they were coming over to San Diego every day. Buses would literally pull up and pick them up.
Yeah, and we're paying for it all. We allow them to come to our schools, and they go right back to Mexico, and they come here and they use our school systems, and they go right back. And I'm talking by the thousands.
You know,
every day
it's interesting, David, because the first thing that you have to deny, and which the left has definitely done, and they've complicated it by introducing illegal aliens as just aliens, or no person is illegal anymore. So you have to deny that the law has been broken. And once you deny the law, there is no law that keeps people away from your border, then everything else collapses around it. So the primary law of entering the country illegally is just absolutely overlooked and forgiven. And they're saying on the left, it shouldn't even be there. So what can you do? I mean, you can't legislate. The Republicans won't get behind it because of the, oh my God.
No, everyone's in denial.
There's so many donators to the Republican Party that want open borders. There's so many donators to the Democrat Party that want open borders that everybody seems to be for it except the American people, and everybody against it are donators to the.
Well, the illegals, their thought process when they come here is that this is their country first.
Well,
so they feel like we took it away from them.
Of course.
And they feel like they need their whole family up here. And anybody who comes here, you got guys working for the Border Patrol that their families are illegals and they're bringing their families in too. Mm-hmm. So this is very deep seated. And custom agents, people working for our U.S. government that secretly want Donald Trump out of there, that really do want illegals coming here. And now you got a lot of good Border Patrol. I have a lot of friends that are Border Patrol agents. And what just happened just a few weeks ago was they had some immigrants from the Congo that were being held in Juarez, and they suspected at least 30 to maybe 60% of them had Ebola. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to get over here. I mean, this is just insanity, man. And they're getting frustrated because they can't do their job. Back in the catch and release, and now they have to take them to the.
It's because of Congress that they can't do their job. I mean,
right.
That's where everything falls. The fault falls at Congress. They could clean this up with one vote. You know that? This is the frustrating thing to me. Congress could get together and clean this whole thing up in an afternoon, and they refuse to do it for the American people and for the sovereignty of our country. I do not understand it.
Another thing too is that which I've stressed on another show, was that I think, and I really believe this, that so you got to understand, like when you cross the bridge, there's different ports of entries. There's ports of entries in El Paso, all the way down to Laredo, Texas, mm-hmm. all the way up to San Diego, right? So you have to have a crossing fee. Now you think about this. There's hundreds of thousands of people every day crossing the border to come here and work or do whatever they're doing. They have to pay a fee. You have to pay a crossing fee. I think in El Paso it's like $3 or something like that. I think it's almost $4 to go over to Mexico, and it's like $1 something to come over into the States.
Figures.
What I don't understand is why can't they hire the crossing fee about $1, let's say another $1, and contribute that and to the wall, make that to pay for the wall. So in essence, you're actually having Mexicans pay for the wall by hiring the crossing fee. See what I'm saying? So when you hire the crossing fee, that's
people like Beto O'Rourke don't even want a wall. He said he would tear the wall down and pass. What's there?
He knows what he's doing, man. That guy's he's a cheerleader. I've warned against this guy forever. He basically, what he's running on his platform is just whatever the people want to hear, mm-hmm. Whatever the immigrants want to hear, and that's we don't even need a wall. Let's tear it down, which is absolutely absurd, and it's insanity because that wall protected El Paso when we were having the worst cartel killings in the history of Juarez ever. Mm-hmm. That wall, that blood would have spilled right over into El Paso.
How is no one offended by this guy? You calling himself Beto?
I don't understand it either. To me, it's like I think any Mexican or Hispanic should look at this guy and be like, he's an idiot. Like, how can they even fall for this guy? Because
let's get into what Beto means. Tell us what Beto means.
Well, I call him Beta for beta male.
So do I. I do the exact same thing.
I know, but what does it mean? What does Beto mean?
It's just Beto's just a Hispanic name. Beto. Right. You know, it's Beto's just a name. It was his nickname. He says growing up. I feel like Beto was first of all, his name is Robert. He's Irish.
Of course, he's Irish.
Robert Francis O'Rourke.
Yeah.
Yeah, and believe he's getting a lot of traction, and I really do believe. What? Go ahead.
I said he sounds like a priest, Robert Francis O'Rourke.
I know, he's like right out of a Bing Crosby movie, isn't it? Father Francis O'Rourke. Yes.
He's but his whole platform is just whatever the people want to hear, and you got to remember, like he's done some shady things. He's been a part of a lot of corrupt. He's burglarized. He's did a hit and run and DUI and ran from the scene. The guy's he's a bad dude.
But he hasn't really tied a dog on top of his car.
Wasn't he also part of a hacking group too for a while?
Yeah, he's part of a hacking group. He doesn't have the best, but the people that know him in El Paso really despise. A lot of people despise him. There's an anti-Beto group. But the people that don't really know, I guess you could say, that just kind of go and just follow everything he says, like they're hypnotized. They think this is like the Dallas Cowboys or something. Like they're rooting for a team. They think, oh, well, he's from El Paso. How can you not vote for this guy? I'm like, because I hate his policies and he's a liar.
This guy is so strange. I mean, honestly, when he talks, he looks like he's, attempting liftoff. I mean, dear Lord.
And he stands on everybody's furniture.
Yeah, he's always standing on somebody's table or desk or something.
He walks into a restaurant and just starts standing on the countertop like he's, doing a Coyote Ugly dance or something.
Yeah. He, back in the day, I was doing a podcast about it's 2017, and he was doing some kind of a road trip with a Republican herd. I think it was HURD herd. And they were going on a road trip to the White House or something like that. And they had only about, I want to say 3,000 to 5,000 people commenting and watching this road trip. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy is going nowhere. Mm-hmm. And then boom, all of a sudden he explodes on the scene. Like, I mean, out of nowhere.
Now, is that because of his father-in-law's money? Because there's no way in the world the Democratic Party doesn't know this guy's background. They can vet everybody.
Right, but he'll dance to the tune they want him to. You know what I mean? He's going to be just like every other president. He'll do exactly as they tell him to do. He's going to be, their front man.
You really think he's that much of a threat?
I do.
You do?
Because, here's what I think is going to happen. My prediction on this is that I think he's going to team up with someone like Bernie Sanders or what's his name? Biden. Biden. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Biden or Bernie Sanders. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to run as vice. I think he's going to gain a lot of popularity as running for president. And then I think the game's going to switch and he's going to jump on board with Bin Laden or Biden or Bernie Sanders. That's I think is the most logical way they can go. Because I just don't see him having the full credentials to be a president. But he'll definitely bring in the new energy that someone like Biden or Sanders will need.
Well, I honestly,
to further their agenda.
I have to admit that you should always be cautious because we remember Obama. But man, I just don't see how Trump could possibly get beaten in 2020 unless something.
I don't either. But you got to remember, these liberals do not want to see anything. They don't want to hear any logical argument. Everything is very emotional. They're highly emotional. They don't care about anything Trump says. Everything he does is wrong. Mm-hmm. They see the opposite view than we do. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is almost like the Bloods and the Crips, man. This is like the most insane and polarized I've ever seen in this country. I mean, I could talk logic to somebody and be like, "How do you not like? Look what he's doing for the economy. Look what we're going. Look how he canceled out the TPP. Do you know what that even was? And I go into it, these people, and they don't understand any of it. They just know that he said, grab a girl by the, and they're pissed off about that, or things he said, or he's racist. I'm like, well, how is he racist? Prove it. Help me understand why you think he's racist. And
by the way, this is a guy who used to get awards from the NAACP.
Exactly.
So now at 70, he turned racist.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what people do. At 70, they decide to become racist.
Yeah. It's absurd. I'm telling you, I'm in El Paso. I'm in Beto land. I'm like where everyone's rooting for Beto. Every other yard has a Beto sign on it.
Oh, really?
And it's absolute torture to just be around this. And it's horrible. And
you live in El Paso. How would you like to live in Hollywood for the last 45 years of your life?
Oh, that's got to be brutal.
Now, Chuck, you're in Texas. Do you see a lot of Beto stuff?
No. Oddly enough, I live outside of Weird, which is Austin. So I live about 60 miles northwest of Weird. And once you get out of Weird, it's very conservative. And it's that way with most Texas cities, I think. Once you get out of the city and get into, what they would call the hinterland or the flyover area of the state, it's very conservative. But almost every city, Austin, Houston, Dallas, El Paso, all of these large cities are normally, lean left. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, and I know that Austin had a huge influx of Californians that moved there.
Right. Well, why not? They're very much at home there.
Yeah, and then ruin your state, and then move to Texas and ruin ours, right? I mean, that's how I see it.
Isn't it amazing that people will move out of the state because of taxes and liberal policies and everything else, and move to states that are red states like Florida or Texas, and completely take their own politics with them and completely ruin the states? I mean, it's amazing.
No, and that's exactly what happened to Austin. Austin, he was always a bit liberal, but now it's turned complete socialist.
Yeah.
It's like these people and I talk to these, when I go out and, let's say I go out in Houston or I'm out in Austin or whatever, and I talk to these, 20-something-year-olds when I'm out at a bar or club, but they're completely socialist. Mm-hmm. They think it's the thing to be. It's like they've been conditioned and brainwashed. And I'm worried about, so our generation and your generation, my generation, maybe into about 35 years old, they can still see, the light, I like to say. But under them, these kids are being conditioned in the schools and on television, on the mainstream media, to be socialist.
Our culture has absolutely disintegrated into a socialist culture through our education system, our judicial system, and our media. There's no question about it. And that's where the war really has to take place. It has to change fundamentally in all three of those places. I'm not sure how you do that, but it's
well. If you were gonna take over a country, or if you wanted to intercept a country, wouldn't you condition them at a young age too?
It's exactly
through social media, through mainstream, and through schooling.
I don't know whether you're old enough to remember Khrushchev or not when he was premier of the Soviet Union.
But I don't. I know of him. Yes.
Yeah, Khrushchev basically said this, and now we're watching it happen. He said it in the 50s, and now it's happening in the 2000 teens. So exactly what you just said.
Yeah,
kids are being
take you over without firing a shot.
He said that we will pick you like low-hanging fruit. That's exactly what he said.
And it's all mind control. And if you go to the schools, kids don't. There's kids being reprimanded for wearing a Trump hat. Right. Being picked on and beat up for wearing a Trump hat or any kind of red gear that say Trump on it or anything like that. They're being beat up, and in El Paso, it's real bad. I'm probably one of the very few people that voiced their opinion on Trump, and everyone there.
Well, my guess is you can walk around with a Trump hat on, and no one is going to mess with you. You're a big guy.
Here's the thing. I still got to park my car somewhere, man.
How tall are you, David?
I'm 6'5".
That's what I thought. You're not just a heavyweight fighter. You're a big guy.
Yeah, 6'5", 260.
Yeah, so I don't think too many people are going to snatch your "Make America Great" hat off your head.
Yeah.
No, but still, like I said, I got to park my truck places, and I don't want to like go into a store, come out and see my windows bashed. Like it's just like you got to think of the vandalism and stuff like that. These people are crazy, man. They look at you and me, like people that back Trump, as we're actual KKK racists, like crazy grand wizards. Like
And of course, they're the KKK. I mean,
yeah, they're the nuts. I mean, this is all their delusions.
Yeah, it fascinates me that they claim you're everything that they've always been.
Well, basically, if you support the president or are a white male, pretty much, aren't you a now white nationalist?
Yeah.
Doesn't that pretty much qualify?
Yeah, look what we're fighting against. I mean, and this is all being preached on mainstream media. So you got to remember, this is all happening. They're conditioning people. They're conditioning them through the mainstream it's what I guess you would call this cultural Marxism. I mean, it's kind of like it is
a Marxist.
It's a way of indoctrinating. Yeah, they're indoctrinating the liberalism.
What most people don't understand, David, is this all comes out of progressivism, which is the 1800s, which was Hegel.
Right.
And Hegel started progressivism in Germany, and Marx picked up on it, twisted it a little bit, and made it communism. Giovanni Giantelli, who nobody knows who he is the father of fascism, not Hitler.
Right.
And he picked it up and turned it into fascism. And then everybody else picked it up, and Teddy Roosevelt picked it up and turned it into socialism. And so it's the father of progressivism, is the father of all this crap. And so
right, so they're using liberalism, I guess, as the new pathway to communism. That's where I see this
progressives during the Woodrow Wilson time. They were all called progressives. I mean, think about it. The progressive tax system was under Woodrow Wilson. It was called progressive for a reason, because all Democrats back then were called progressives. And then the country literally turned against them, and they had to change their name, so they changed it to liberal. And then FDR and everybody else were called liberals.
But and we really have no liberals now. I mean, they're just socialists now.
Well, they were never really liberals either. They were always progressives, and they've just come back to the roots. But this is history, and nobody was interested in this.
I'd like to introduce you to a new type of podcast. And by new, I mean there's never been anything like this before, not in terms of scope or ambition. The show's called Living Beyond 120. Science proved that lifespan could exceed 120 years back in the 1960s. And the Bible first mentioned living to 120 years 6,000 years ago in the book of Genesis. But the question is, how do we get there? Living Beyond 120 tries to answer this question. The show is an exploration into human longevity and what it will take for us to live longer, healthier lives, featuring interviews with some of the most respected minds in longevity science and tackling big subjects like how the medical system, big pharma, and maybe even our own government don't want you to live longer. Living Beyond 120. It's hosted by me and my co-host, medical expert, Dr. Jeffrey Gladden. You'll find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast directory, and you can also listen to it at the website livingbeyond120.com. So, David, talk to us about the Hispanic community. Is doing better under President Trump than they have ever done in the United States, correct?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of, believe me, there is a lot of Hispanics that back Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Don't believe the hype where they say I would say there's a good chunk, at least 30 to 40% of Hispanics that really do back Donald Trump, and they came here to work hard. And most families that do come into the United States are hardworking. They're good families. The Mexican culture, the Hispanic culture is a wonderful culture. I love it very much. But there's also there's always the bad seed. I mean, for every garter snake, for every 10 garter snakes you're letting in a rattler, and there is a lot of sex trafficking. There is a lot of meth. I think Mexico is the number one supplier of meth now. Mm-hmm. And I believe and heroin and cocaine is all coming through our borders. And yeah, they do. They always, the Democrats say, well, we catch most of it through the port of entry. Well, yeah, because that's where you're fully staffed. And what about where you're not? You know what I mean? You don't even know. You can't even account for it because it's all just flooding over here. And so they twist facts and they lie. They're grand liars. And I see it. I used to see the important thing about me is I can speak on experience because I used to train in Juarez. I used to go there and box there and work out there, and I knew the criminal element pretty well back in the day. And where the wall is right now, there was a street running parallel to it called Paisano. Paisano is the first street that you hit when you come over from Mexico. And Paisano, when there was no wall there, the kids that were like, 15, 16, 17, up until like 25 years old, grown men, would come and lay 2x4s would cross over, lay 2x4s with nails in the 2x4s and lay them on Paisano. And the cars that would drive by would hit a flat, and then they would go and carjack those people and steal from them. And then they'd also go to the Santa Fe rail system or the train and steal from the containers. And this was happening every other night, man. I mean, this was not like, and they would laugh about it and joke about it. And this was just a common thing. And the Border Patrol couldn't do nothing because you could easily see the Border Patrol posts and see where they're posting up. And when they would switch shifts, or they would drive their truck off into a quarter up the road, easily you could cross over and do whatever you wanted to do and know exactly the time limit you had. And if someone's chasing you like the Border Patrol, these kids would just outrun them anyway. They'd only have to run, about 50 to 100 yards to cross right back over into Mexico, and then they're home free. So, and they were killing people. I mean, it was really, really bad when the wall wasn't there. People don't seem to remember this.
But I thought walls don't work.
Don't remember a lot of things, whether it's willful ignorance or what it is. They don't want to remember, or they just don't remember. But you're right.
Well,
right.
David, why do you think the left doesn't want this wall? How could anyone not want this wall?
A lot of it is their voters, man. The illegal immigrants are going to be their voters, and they want these people on the free government programs. The taxpayers paying for it, and that's their whole. That's their platform, man. That's what they want. They're the people that are going to vote for them are the illegals, and they want to bring their families here. And, and I'm also very much against globalism, and I think they're the party of globalism. Mm-hmm. And I definitely, some of the Republicans are too. Everyone's in on this game.
They are.
To me, globalism, you got that. That's why it's called the deep state.
It's very funny. David, if you look at something, you see just exactly how much power you have. A great example of this is Brexit. The entire country voted for getting out of the European Union, and the politicians won't let them do it. They will not let it go. They're not interested in what the people want any more than our government is interested in what we want. They are interested. Exactly. We know better what's best for you, and this is what's going to happen. And we mistakenly continue to reelect these people to not to serve us, but to rule over us. And this is what you get for it.
1,000%, I agree with you. And it's gotten so out of hand. I mean, starting with, let's just go back to the Clintons, Bill Clinton. Think how many illegal immigrants were coming over here, and now to the point where it's at now. It's well into the, I don't know, was it over 30 million or something like that? Is it something crazy like that? I don't know the exact.
I mean, it's insane.
So these people now have a voice here. They've actually come to our country and taken over like a silent invasion to where they actually have a voice.
And so thousands of them can march with signs and people will pay attention. Certainly mainstream media.
And they're not Americans.
No.
You know what I'm saying? That's another country that invaded us, and basically pretending to be Americans. They're here illegally, and they're voicing their opinion in our country. Think how insane that is. Imagine if we were to go to Mexico and do that, or go to Honduras, or go to Salvador, or any other country in the world, and just set up tent and claim citizenship and just start voicing our opinion.
Well, the Russians are back in Venezuela now. They dumped a bunch of troops in Venezuela. They're constantly trying to, invade us from the south and take over.
Right. They're trying to get a
Salvador, Nicaragua. They've done it with Cuba. They're now working on their favorite socialist, Venezuela. So we better be careful. I know that the Pentagon has their eyes on this, but I mean, there's constantly this insurgence from Russia and from other countries and bad actors who are constantly trying to invade our borders and take over the whole southern hemisphere.
Absolutely, yeah. They're trying to get a strong foothold down there. And, I think with all the stuff that Trump has on his plate, the last thing he needs is all this Russian collusion, and thank God that's over with now.
Well, can you imagine how much damage that has done to him on foreign relations? I mean,
he can't.
Incredible.
Think about all the things he could. Think how much more he could have gotten done.
It's incalculable.
Without these distractions. Yeah, without these obstacles. I mean, it's just. But now he's going to. I'm telling you, his sights need to get set on Beto, because I really believe Beto's their only strong runner. I think he's the one that's going to be doing the most damage, because he has the most energy. He knows how to pull a crowd. He knows how to motivate. He's just he's like a cheerleader at a pep rally.
Mm-hmm.
He's just going to tell the people what they want to hear, and people are going to fall in love with this guy. I'm telling you. And he is going to be the main threat for Trump. And there's just so much dirt on this guy. The liberals will conveniently just ignore it.
Yeah.
They'll just conveniently ignore it.
David, you've written a book, haven't you?
Yeah, I did. It's called When the Lights Go Out, and it's a memoir, but it's also it's on Amazon. But it's really about Juarez. A lot of it is about Juarez. I talk about Juarez greatly in the book, and how it was growing up on both sides of the border.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it without giving away the whole thing.
Yeah, it's just about the dirty politics of boxing. It's about a one man's journey to the top.
I mean, just as a viewer, I don't know the insides, but I remember when the mafia pretty much had hold of, you were going to throw this fight and you were going to throw that fight, and it was all about bets and money. Is that still going on?
I've never seen that firsthand, but I just
that was going on back in the day, in the 50s and 40s, and they were notorious for which gave boxing a very bad name because nobody believed it.
Right. It's basically about the different training camps I went to, the politics, how people rank their fighters, it's really a sports book, but at the same time there's a lot of culture in it with Mexico, and I talk about what it was like going to Juarez. I talk about how I was almost killed there a few times.
Dude, going into Juarez.
I've been shot at there. It was a really different kind of upbringing, and to say, that takes me back to to say that we don't want the wall and all this is just so absurd, man. Beto had a very sheltered life, for him to say he grew up in a border town, this, that. The guy was sheltered, man. He went to prep school, and he has no business talking about what he's talking about, I, on the other hand, can talk about my experience of going to both sides and being around the criminal element over there, and I know it well. And it's absurdity. This guy, he's a complete hypocrite. I don't take anything he says serious. But back to the book, it's mainly about a boxing life and the dirty politics within boxing and growing up on both sides of the border. So it really was supposed to be just a diary. When I wrote it when I had back surgery, and I did not think about putting it out there to the public at all. I was it wasn't until about the 7th or 8th chapter that I finally said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and put this out there, because I need to tell what's been bottled up inside. And that's it. It's just very raw and blunt. And
getting back to boxing for just a minute, you really had a stellar record. I mean, great record. You held two WBC belts, correct?
Yes.
And you also held, Texas heavyweight as well as Mexico heavyweight. Am I correct?
Yeah, I was Texas heavyweight champion, the Mexico heavyweight champion.
And it's unusual.
Mexico's heavyweight champion.
A Mexican kid who's a heavyweight. That's pretty unusual, don't you think? I mean, usually lightweight, even up to yeah.
What's next for you? So, you're spending time going after anti-bullying now, right?
Yeah, I have a campaign that I do in El Paso. I speak to kids in all the different schools, and I'll speak in front of about 1,000 to 2,000 kids at a time sometimes, and it's in the auditoriums, and I just speak on. It's basically me talking about my being bullied as a kid and how I overcame it, and it led to a very glamorous yet tormented boxing career. Because boxing, there's nothing really fun about boxing. I don't care what fighter you talk to. It's a very stressful and anxiety-filled sport. But it was my outlet, and I think bullying is what led to it, and being bullied. And it's just like the dog that gets kicked too much as a puppy finally gets older and bites people. And that's pretty much how I responded with all the bullying that I went through as a kid.
I think everybody goes through that. I mean, I can remember I was a big kid. By the time I was 11, I was 6'1", and I looked like a Marine. I mean, I really was way too big for my age. And I can remember on Garden Avenue in Ashland, Kentucky, a car pulled up beside me while I was walking home one night, and 3 guys got out and beat the crap out of me. To this day, I have no idea who they were or why they did it. And I was just a little kid. They were all like 17, 18 years old. And so, yeah, I had my time in the scopes. I remember once a bunch of guys jumped me outside the drugstore. And at that time, these aerosol bottles of underarm deodorant had come out, and they were full of alum. And they literally sprayed alum in my mouth. I'll never forget that. I mean, that's bullying. Try to get that out of your mouth, man, when you're tired, But anyway, we all go through it. We all know what it is, and it's despicable, and yet, it happens all the time. It really does. And it's like everything else. Gone unchecked, it just continues to get worse and worse and worse.
Well,
be very careful.
For me, it was just giving back to the community that I came from. I just wanted to give back to the kids, and I just felt like it was, something I had the right to do, and I did it, and I wrote the book, and a lot of, what's funny, just about 3 weeks, about a month ago, I was going to this place to eat, and the kid comes running out from next door, and he goes, "Hey, are you David Rodriguez?" I was like, yeah. And I was like, "Can I help you?" He was like, "Listen, man," he goes, "I just want to tell you, can you wait here? I have to go to my truck. I have your book. And really? I really would want you to, he goes, I really want you to sign it." And he goes, "Man, that book really saved my life, man. You have no idea." And I was thrown back. I couldn't believe he said that because I've been bullied all my life. And to know that you were bullied and the way you overcame it, he goes, "You don't understand how much hope that's given me." And that right there was worth writing the whole book. I don't give a hell. Yeah, I don't care if anybody else read it, just that guy. And if that's who it helped, then it was worth it.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really enjoyed having you. If there's anything we can do to help you along, we'd be happy to do that. Mark, anything to add?
Nothing other than I want people to keep listening to guys like David and realize that the Hispanic community, just like the African-American community, is not monolithic.
Right.
That there are people with different points of view. Don't believe everything you're hearing. Just remember, the people that are telling you that all Hispanics hate the president are the people that told you there was Russian collusion.
Absolutely.
Exactly. You're 1,000% right. And let me stress one more point.
Sure, David.
When Trump came to El Paso,
yes,
there was the media lied. The El Paso local media lied and said there was only 7,000 people there at most. There was easily 40,000 people. Yeah. Easily. Outside, inside was packed to capacity. They added more people. But the local media lied, and they should be held accountable for that. Yeah, they do.
Look and they said Beto when he was sworn in as president, they said nobody was in the stands. I mean, it never stopped.
I mean, this has got to stop, man. These people have their fake news, and they've got to be held accountable. Well, they have their own agenda, and it's got to be. And I think it's being brought to light now. I know it is. People are seeing the light, and I think people are leaving in droves. But I just wanted to stress that point. Yeah, I just want to point out that everyone that was at that Trump rally was Mexican, and they all had Trump hats on. So that should let people know that not all Mexicans back the Democratic Party at all.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you for that, and thank you for coming on the show and sharing your views and your book. And we wish you the best of luck. And anything we can do to help, let us know.
And we'll have links to the book and all his social media in the show notes at bluntforcetruth.com.
Thank you, buddy. It's been a good day, good show, and hope you all enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time on Blunt Force Truth.